I want to welcome you back to another episode of what I've branded Pivotal, since these interview style segments tackle impactful CPG industry topics and lessons from the business leaders that live it every day. In this episode, I talk with an amazing friend that just so happens to be the CEO of Vital Proteins, Tracy Warner Halama. She shares early stories about what went into the shifted consumer focus towards women that led to Vital Proteins becoming a $1 billion plus brand. Also, how the company has continued to double its sales and stay the market leader even after the Russian competitors have come to chase the Vital Proteins effect. Those are just a few of the many topics Tracy and I discussed. But before we get started on this incredible episode, I wanted to give a quick shout out to the sponsor of this content, New Live Science. Over the last 25 years, New Live Science has grown into a leading full range ingredient supplier, early stage developer of nutraceuticals, and a trusted turnkey service provider to the dietary supplement and cosmeceutical industry. You can find several New Live Science ingredients utilized within the Vital Proteins product portfolio, including the skin nourishing ingredient Astron that enhances collagen synthesis and hyaluronic acid. In fact, the plant based compound Astron has shown in a study to increase type 1 collagen production by 60% in the outer layer of skin and 80% in the middle layer. If you're interested in obtaining more information around why brands are formulating with New Live Science ingredients to take their products to the next level, head over to newlivescience.com or reach out to me directly and I'll connect you with the relevant team member. But without further delay, here is my conversation with Tracy Warner Halama, CEO of the market leading Nutricosmetic brand Vital Proteins. First off, Tracy, wanted to thank you for giving my community some of your time. I wanted to first kind of congratulate you on a recent promotion from the president of Vital Proteins to the CEO of Vital Proteins. I think that happened in just January, so it's a fairly new promotion at this point. But before we get into like the, I guess, nitty gritty of Vital Proteins and everything, I did want to ask you a question, kind of more personal about like what brought you to the like health and wellness industry because your professional experience was all like in the tech industry for a number of years before you got into it. And I know like I transitioned from Microsoft over to the space, and a lot of people were like, why would you leave, whatever.
Right.
So I guess I'm a little bit personally curious about like what brought you over to like the health and wellness like CPG space.
Well, ironically, probably very similar to your own story. So fundamentally, I was in tech for 20 years, and by all practical pursuits, I was successful. I was a rising executive within IBM. I had worked for other large companies like EMC, Dell, had worked for some Silicon Valley startups. And while I was professionally successful, I wasn't really passionate about what I do. And I was in my early 40s and I was getting into CrossFit. And this is an interesting story because clearly suburban moms probably shouldn't have CrossFit dreams that involve going toe to toe with ex NCAA athletes that are in their 20s. But as as a person, I'm pretty competitive, so I thought I could go toe to toe with them. And unfortunately, I had a shoulder labrum tear because of my competitiveness. And what it taught me was that, maybe I should temper back a little bit what I do from an athletic pursuit standpoint. But I lost mobility in my arm. And after 6 months worth of rehab, the highest I could get my arm was about here. And I was traveling a ton for work, working at IBM. I was covering a fair geography in terms of direct reports and then also accounts. And every time I got on a plane, I had to ask someone to put my luggage up in the overhead compartment, which was kind of embarrassing. And I ran into a colleague of mine from the tech world, Kurt Seidensticker, who is the founder and former CEO of Vital Proteins. And he said, I've got a business idea and I really want to run it past you because I don't know anyone that buys as many products as you do. So Do you have a minute to take a look at my business plan? And he had sent me some product and he said, I need you to take this collagen every single day. Be consistent with your usage. So I'm like, okay, I'll put it in my coffee every morning. Got it. And after 2.5 weeks, I went to grab a platter for dinner for my family. And all of a sudden, I stretched straight up. And I'm like, oh, this must not be my bad shoulder. And I'm like, holy shit, right? Excuse the French. But holy cow, this is pretty incredible because I hadn't done anything else. I was still doing PT. And then all of a sudden it was that aha moment. The only thing that changed was my consumption of collagen. And it was after 2.5 weeks. So that for me was, the light bulb that went off. And I said, okay, well, if I could marry, passion and purpose, and I know this sounds very dramatic
Yeah.
that all of a sudden my life had changed because I mean, in some respect, it kind of did because I regained mobility. And in your early 40s, you shouldn't have any mobility issues, right? It's not like I was 70 or 80. So for me, it was, what do I want to do with the rest of my life? And so when that moment happened, I called up Kurt and I said, hey, listen, I think I can help you with your business plan. I can certainly help you from a sales and marketing perspective. How are you going to launch this product? And so that's really what happened back in 2014. And it was one of those like leap of faith, like it was a big risk. And I remember telling my parents about it. My dad was like, you're crazy. I can't believe you're going to leave IBM, a rising career at IBM, and go sell cow powder. That's what he used to call it, cow powder. Um, so, that was the premise that led me into health and wellness because I really felt like it made such a big difference in my life. How many other people could this product make a difference in?
Yeah, I mean, I think what you just said there is, I think, key to probably a lot of people that are in the industry, or at least that are so passionate about like, there's something that brought you in there, and then you want to be able to share that with as many people that you can, because I feel like though the supplements or any kind of like health and wellness products have become a lot more, I guess, normalized, I think, especially the last couple of years. But there's still a lot of people that don't really understand like what they can provide and how to integrate them into their lives, and just like the wide breadth of products that are out there. I think, maybe you know about a few of the vitamins and minerals, but you don't know like the full spectrum of different products. So when you do find the things that work, it's like you want to tell everybody. And it's I feel like I get that myself as well, and why I kept, looking in the offices at Microsoft and saying like, this isn't for me. Like there's has to be more. There has to be something that's more exciting, than just, crunching a bunch of numbers and doing revenue recognition stuff for 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 a huge company. So since you were with, Vital since the early days, and you kind of saw even, before you joined, when Kurt was just talking about like, this idea of a business, I think he had mentioned it around, I think, his joint, like relief and things like that. And that obviously is not necessarily the angle anymore. You guys have evolved and kind of shifted. And you were part of the early days, and part of those discussions about the shift or the pivot towards, maybe the female buyer group, or just being really the face, I think, of like this beauty from within, or like Nutricosmetic space. So maybe you could talk through maybe some of those like early, I guess, like, brand building tenants and things that you've done, like to move the company to become like a, billion-dollar plus company at this point.
Mhm. So great question. So in the early days, like you said, Kurt really, his vision was creating a paleo running company. So he himself was a runner and he was witnessing joint pain as he was approaching 50. And he was realizing that instead of having a day or two off post, 5 mile run, he needed like 3 or 4 or 5 days to recover. So that was the genesis behind Vital Proteins. At the time, there were other collagen players in the market, but they were only in capsule form and they were 500 milligrams. Some of them were like 375. His daughter was in medical school at the time, and she found an article that was glycine and the aging athlete. And for every kilogram of weight, you needed zero 0.6 grams of glycine. So that was really the white paper and the impetus that started the company. And what we realized was for him, he needed about 60 or 70 capsules in order to get that efficacious dose of collagen and or glycine, I should say. And for the average woman, probably not quite as many capsules, but who's really going to take, 40, 50, 60 capsules of collagen in addition to their daily, vitamin regime? So what he thought of was, well, what if we could just make it into a powder and make it like protein powder that you would just put into your smoothie? At the time, we hadn't really figured out the use case of coffee quite yet. Um, so fundamentally, that was the premise. And what we realized after going to Paleo FX and some of the early trade shows like Expo West and Expo East was the core of the consumers in any type of consumer products is predominantly female. Yes, you have, the men that are making the choices, that 18 to 35-year-old demographic that makes the choices on the type of protein they're going to use, the type of pre-workout they're going to use in GNC and kind of the vitamin shop space. But if you think about all consumer products and even just protein and meal replacement, a lot of that decision making is coming from females. So once we looked at the data and we saw such a strong kind of connection with collagen and the female perception that collagen equates to skin, hair, nails, we were like, we still want a wellness premise, but we also think that there's this female demographic that we can go out and capture. And in 2017, we had a meeting with a buyer at Costco. Her name's Ashley Kamara. She took a chance on us very early on. And she said, I think I could build a category within the beauty department, because she was a beauty buyer, entitled Beauty from Within. And so we leaned in big, and it was a big risk because at that time, we were still kind of going strong with beef gelatin and collagen peptides. And our target demographic was really the whole food set that crossed over a little bit into GNC and Vitamin Shop and mostly the natural consumer that weren't afraid of a little bit elevated price point because we've always been sold at a premium. So when Target had this idea of beauty from within, we changed the packaging, we changed the flavor combination. We were probably trying to over-architect it. Lavender lemon was one of our flavors in the beginning, and then we kind of dumbed it down to strawberry lemon. Ironically, my 10-year-old daughter at the time aided in that strawberry lemon flavor. She was the one who suggested it, and ironically, it's been the most successful beauty collagen that we've ever created. So I think it was a little bit of risk. Kurt wanted to be merchandised in the OTC set. For those of you that don't know what OTC within Target is, over the counter, and it's basically where all the other whey protein and bars and all the kind of nutritional items live. So clearly the beauty section is in a different section. They're somewhat close to one another, but it was a risk. And I'm like, no, like we've got to take this opportunity. Like Target doesn't come calling. And Target was the perfect retailer for us to kind of test and learn with beauty from within. And we got in store, and within, I don't know, 6 months, the numbers were trending really strong week on week, lots of growth. And I think we all realized was, this beauty consumer is serious about improving the texture of their hair, their skin, their nails, and they're willing to lean into something, even though it's a protein powder, something that they, traditionally were putting on topically.
You talked about, obviously there was competitors that were selling collagen. I mean, that was always kind of there, especially even in the sports nutrition industry. I remember the first place that I had worked at, Muscle Farm, we had a collagen gel that was like portable, that was similar to like the goo gels that were like the
Name, yeah,
carbohydrates.
yeah.
The product was like, we could never get the manufacturing right because there was a bunch of like expanding and it just waste, and it was bad. But I think like there's been, decades of people selling this. But regardless of people maybe being like first movers or whatever, you guys were the category creators. I mean, you guys were that person. And I always kind of I've dubbed this a few times, where you say like, it's the vital proteins effect, or there's like the liquid IV effect, where there's a category that gets created, even though it's been around for a while, it's been cemented by like a main competitor, and then be it sales performance, be it a very large splashy transaction, whatever that is, everybody rushes in. They all want to start offering products, which you guys have to deal with on a constant basis. Now everybody's launching, collagen products. Everybody's launching different Nutricosmetic or beauty from within products. It's like every single set that you guys are in across every channel. There are people beating down those merchandisers and those buyers' doors saying, "We have the next this. We're gonna supplant Vital Proteins out of the top spot." But despite all of that, you guys have continued to keep your market share, I think, above 50%. You guys continue to, differentiate yourselves. And I'm just kind of curious, like having all those like competitors kind of nipping at your, toes, like how do you stay, I guess, aggressive and nimble and making sure you're different in the market?
Mhm. Great question. I think that it is a little bit of the Vital Proteins brand halo. So, like from the early days, we were very committed to transparency, clean label, and quality. So, we were the first ones to put a cow on the front of our label. So, if you would have thought about collagen 10 years ago, it's one of those things where you would say, is that from a vegan source or is that from an animal source? And you didn't really know. And if you looked at some of the other brands that were in the VMS set, like I said, the tablets and capsules, prior to our powder launch, it wasn't on the back of pack, it wasn't on the front of pack. So we really were very committed from day one about transparency and clean label. We went all over the world trying to source the best collagen that we could. So obviously collagen comes from a bovine, it's the hide of a cow. And we found the right type of Nelor cow, which doesn't produce estrogen. So it doesn't have the hormonal rush, ebbs and flows of like a pregnant cow. So they're only raised for meat production. So we found that that type of cow produced the cleanest collagen. So that commitment to really sourcing and making sure that if we were to give collagen a wine spectator score, that we would always be in the 95 point range or higher, and that we were never going to skimp on quality, which is, like it's part of our brand ethos. So I would say that was kind of first and foremost. We did have first mover advantage in the market. So we were the first one to really put it into an efficacious dose of grams. Everyone else was doing, like I said, the 500 milligrams, the 1 gram, the 2 grams, but no one was going to market with 20 grams of collagen. Bone broth was pretty popular in 2015, 2016 when we first started. So I think a lot of people were either thinking about bone broth or collagen when they realized how flavorless and how easy collagen was to use. You could put it in your tea, you could put it in your water, you could put it in your coffee. Obviously collagen became the market winner. I would say, another big element that makes Vital different is we're a marketing machine. So in the early days, because of our tech background, a lot of the founding team members have a technology background. We always called ourselves a digital marketing company that happened to sell CPG
Yeah.
products. And I think because our heritage was we took risks, we did agile development, we did things that, kind of the same premise of Silicon Valley companies that started up. It wasn't really the mindset and the processes of big CPG. So we were willing to fail. We were willing to take risks. We were willing to, quickly, revisit and pivot and then try again. So I think that having that kind of fail forward approach, having that real commitment to marketing, we started working with bloggers before influencers really made it on the scene. So we worked with Wellness Mama and Melissa Hartwig, now Melissa Urban, in the early days, who started speaking about our product. So I think that was very pivotal. Clearly, that influencer strategy led us into having celebrity fans like Jennifer Aniston and the Kardashians, and most recently Addison Rae. So I think that that kind of focus on marketing, influencer, but I mean, truly, the best marketing tactic for us is word of mouth because we had such a high quality product. And then lastly, I would say that, we've got a really great sales organization that understands where we need to be from a points of distribution standpoint. And even in the early days, there are fundamental some, guardrails that I put up that we weren't going to cross. We weren't going to go into Walmart too early. We went into Walmart pretty late in late 2019. So most brands tend to go into Walmart a lot earlier. We told them no for a while. And that's not traditionally what I think most young startups would do. But we knew that our consumer was premium. We knew that Whole Foods had really helped incubate our brand. We knew that Costco really helped scale our brand, and entering into Walmart too soon, when those established channels weren't there yet, could have been, a little bit disastrous for us. So we waited. And, now we have such a healthy Walmart business. And I think taking collagen into middle America has been a great strategy for us over the past 18 months. And certainly using a big name like Jennifer Aniston, who's our chief creative officer. And she's not just, a brand ambassador per se, she's also co-developing products with us. And she has a very clear point of view on wellness, the ingredients that she likes, what she'd be interested in consuming. So I think all of that really kind of makes the entire vital difference.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of those strategies that you guys put together, you string them all together and you align them, and it, creates this almost like perfect web of things. And I know that obviously, sometimes tests don't work out and maybe we don't know about those and, wherever. But from a outward kind of like spectator, looking on, I've always been, extremely impressed with all the moves that have been made over the last, I would say, 3 to 5 years of just like paying attention and just kind of having that seem like each one of the levers are getting pulled at the right time. And, you're being thoughtful and not being hasty towards some of these decisions that ultimately serve the wrong master, where you say like something like a Walmart or something. Yeah. I mean, from a revenue perspective, it could be a great move early to just get yourself in there. But does that serve the wrong like, are you ready for that? Does that ultimately help the brand get to where you want it to go and be in a stronger position long term? You have to kind of wait for those opportunities to make sense for the brand, not just maybe for their merchandising set or for maybe a revenue perspective or something like that. So I think it's great that you kind of talk through some of that stuff, because I think that thoughtful approach is super important in CPG, because there's a ton of things that get thrown your way, and you have to understand which things you could say yes to, like you should say yes to, and which ones you shouldn't. If it's
Right.
even from just like you're mentioning product development and things of that nature, like, yeah, there's a ton of trends, there's a ton of things that are going on, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you should be the one that's grabbing it. Like, is it on brand and is it on trend? If it's not on brand first, like maybe let somebody else handle it. Let somebody else kind of run with it. Don't feel like you have to do the shiny nickel syndrome or something, like where you see something, you're like, oh, let me grab it or wherever. You have to be kind of a lot more thoughtful, because there's going to be a ton of opportunities that get passed your way, but you have to make sure that you're thoughtful in the approach that you kind of create.
For sure. Like I remember when some of our retailers were coming to us and, kind of poking around, like, what about CBD and collagen? And I'm like, we're not a CBD company, we're a collagen company. And if you look at our portfolio, 97, 98% of our products have collagen in them. Now, fundamentally, the title is Vital Proteins. So I do think that we have the ability to flex into maybe plant protein.
Yeah.
Our gummy innovation, which we introduced about a year ago, 5 out of the 6 formulas do not have collagen. So I don't want to be completely earmarked into collagen only, but I just didn't think that CBD, with all of the legislature in place right now, and it's really hard to get a CBD product into a Target or even a Whole Foods, for example. So that just didn't seem on brand for us. We really strive to kind of have that fuller, vibrant lifestyle, how to maximize your best life. And that's a different storyline. And it's probably a storyline that someone else is going to tell much better than we are.
Now, I kind of mentioned a little bit earlier around like sometimes a splashy transaction ends up like happening, which I think most people, if they know anything about Vital Proteins, knows that you guys did have one of those with Nestle now being the owner, which I think is a great shepherd of health and wellness brands. I think they're creating a very huge like health and wellness powerhouse with these assets that they're gobbling up right now, and they probably have a lot more that they want to kind of grab and kind of integrate together. So I'm excited to kind of see where that goes. But that transaction didn't slow you guys down at all. I think a lot of times when that does happen, a lot of things with integration or whatever happens, it slows you down. But last year, I think you guys grew, doubled your business. And through, with new owners and probably a lot of like just shifts of human capital or different administrative, process procedures, all that kind of stuff. But you're able to do that. And I'm kind of curious, like, how you were able to kind of push through some of that noise and really kind of keep focusing on revenue, brand, customer, all that kind of stuff.
So Nestle Health Science has really kind of curated this group of brands that it's more elevated than better for you. It's not quite pharmaceutical. So it's food is medicine, if you will. And, great brands like Garden of Life, Orgain, Atrium Innovations. So there's a lot of brands that kind of fit that realm. So first of all, having that kind of relentless why we fit in, I think is important. And then understanding that, they bought us for a reason and they want to keep, the specialness, the unicorn fairy dust of Vital Proteins in place. So they really were, very hands off with us both last year and even now. As a fully acquired company, the only person within Vital that reports into Nestle is myself. So I would say that, it was a very thoughtful integration. How can we best leverage the trajectory that, Vital was currently on? And we grew more in terms of year-on-year growth in 2021 post first part of the acquisition. So we grew 103%. The year before, we had only grown 60%. So I think once they saw how well it was working, across the board, everyone was really cheering us on and say, how can we help out? And Nestle did a lot for us. Global distribution was something that we were really challenged with as a family-owned business and as a single entity. So being able to open up those levers of distribution globally, our Canada business went through the roof. Our UK business went through the roof. We're now in 17 countries outside of the US. So that's been tremendous for us. I think sourcing, when you think of Nestle, you think of coffee and you think of chocolate. So sourcing raw materials for our collagen, our chocolate collagen, was really critical. So they drove out a lot of cost and efficiencies. So I think that there's been a really good merriment between the two organizations. Like, we recognize the strength that Nestle brings to the table. They recognize the strengths that Vital brings to the table. And we really try to get the most out of one another without saying, hey, you have to, kind of adhere to these new policies and new processes. There are some, as with any acquisition, we've had a hard time going from Gmail and G Suite to, kind of the Microsoft suite. But I mean, other than that, it's been pretty great.
So I think you're, a third of the way through your first year as a CEO. I guess maybe rate yourself on the first, 33% of the first year, but then also like, what do you hope to accomplish over the next, year or so, now that you're, at the helm of this, super impressive brand?
Great question. Rate myself. So the funny thing is, I'm actually in a graduate school program at the University of California, Berkeley, and it's the CEO program. So it's like an accelerated MBA for a one-year program. And coming into it, I was able to get the baseline of our company. So 30 different people, executives and leaders in the company, filled out a survey, and they kind of said current state of Vital and where they'd like Vital to go. So it was a great roadmap for me. And what it told me was we were a little bit too focused on results and not focused enough on people. So I would say my first 4 months after I got that feedback, I'm like, wow, okay, we've really got to kind of change our approach. And when you think about it, 3, 4 years ago, working for companies like, Amazon, Uber, those high growth Silicon Valley companies, everyone wanted those jobs, and they were so cool, and you had cool offices just like we do. And it was like in vogue to be part of a high growth startup. And I think now when you think about, the cross section of employee morale, you're thinking about words like, mental well-being, mindfulness, meditation, journaling. So I think our whole psyche is different. So one thing that this study kind of helped put me in the right direction, pointing me in the right direction, is that we've evolved as a company, and we're not the same company that we were 2 years ago. And we really need to be more people-centric. We overhauled a bunch of our benefits plans, and we're now doing community service. We're giving back. We offered up $100,000 donation to World Central Kitchen, which we're really proud of. We had never done anything at that scale before. So I think we're becoming more of a woke company that our employees are proud to work for. And it doesn't have anything to do about what our numbers and what our results are, but just becoming a more empathetic human company. So I would say that's probably what I'm most proud of. The fact that I didn't realize it in January before the survey means that I'm not going to give myself a super high grade, but I'm working really hard right now. So I would say probably a B. A
Not
B.
bad. That's not bad. And I mean, I think that every organization, like regardless of size or how long they've been in market or whatever, I think everybody had to over the last couple of years, like look inwardly and say, are we providing what we need to this, employees or human capital or whatever to make sure that we are giving them everything they need to thrive in this new environment. And I think that everybody needed that time to just, okay, let's relook at everything and let's make sure that we are appropriately aligned with everything and making sure that we are giving, the most amount of the organization possible what they need to be successful, because I think people ultimately drive the success, of all these things. I mean, you're asking, as a leader, a lot out of people. A lot of times, you spend most of your time with your coworkers and things like that. So it's like, you want to make sure that they feel most enriched and most, I guess, like passionate to be there and do their best work. Because if you could, I guess, get that to happen, then great things end up happening in the office, because it's just that specialness, that cumulative like effect where it starts to get buzzy. And I don't know, how many people are in the office or not, but regardless if it's through Zoom or Teams or whatever, or if it's in the office, I think if everybody's feeling good about what the organization is providing them, they're going to give a lot more out of the organization
Sure.
as well.
And ultimately, we are a health and wellness company.
Yeah.
So we have to be acting responsibly as a health and wellness company. So, it's critical moving forward that we're promoting them, we're helping them from a career development standpoint, and that we're really, our greatest asset isn't Jennifer Aniston. It's actually the individual employees themselves and what they do on a day-to-day basis.
I was thinking about, kind of maybe what could be next, or maybe in terms of like where you see the category going. And I know that you have those guardrails up in terms of knowing like, what is vital and what is not vital proteins, like where should you not go? And I know there's a lot of conversation around like bi-directional beauty at this point, like where it's, beauty from within, but also, the normal, I guess, application of what most beauty thinks about. And if brands have the right to win in both sides, can they also do, creams and typical kind of like topicals, and can they also do ingestible things, or is that too much? Or even in the sense of, now that Nestle Health Science, like, and Nestle as a whole, you talked about coffee at the beginning. It's like, is there some type of functional coffee application that makes sense because of now the owner? And I don't know if you want to give away any secrets or not, but it's just like my mind was wandering towards some of those things. Like, do you see that being maybe the future of Vital, of any of those ideas, or are you guys, kind of focused in on one area?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think, great companies are constantly innovating, and they're constantly coming from a place of curiosity. Like, what should we do next, right? Does this make sense? Does this not make sense? I think one thing that we've determined, we did go into both Sephora and, kind of, I'm going to say the beauty sector, right?
Yeah.
Nordstrom, Neiman Marcus, different outlets like Blue Mercury. And I think the core consumer that's going into Sephora isn't necessarily looking for an ingestible product. Our turns there were not as high as I thought they were going to be when we launched. So I think about like the beauty brands that are doing well, and like Youth to the People is one of them, and they have like a kale and spinach mask, and Coco Kind's doing a lot of great things as well, with clean beauty. And I think it's just outside of who we are, right? Part of what makes Vital very successful is we are semi vertically integrated. So all of our powder manufacturing is done here in Chicago,
Hmm.
not in this facility, but outside of O'Hare. And that's very rare
Yeah.
um, for a brand, a health and wellness brand. Usually it's off to third-party manufacturers. So it enables us to be very nimble. We're able to innovate very quickly. We can spin up a new idea and a new product, as long as it's a powder product, in 6 weeks. Which if you would talk to, Pepsi or Gatorade or any of the big CPG companies here in Chicago, they would tell you that the innovation cycle is usually 18 to 24 months. So I think for us, that powder format is where we've won. It's where consumers think about Vital Proteins. And I think crossing into like topical beauty is just too far outside, who we are as a brand. Now, coffee is consumable. Coffee can be in powder form. So I would say that that has some legs, and we may or may not be doing something in that realm. I would say that bringing collagen into other formats is a direction where we're headed. We've got a new innovation with Jennifer Aniston that she co-developed with us, that will be out towards the end of May. So we're super excited about that. So I think that capturing that net new consumer by bringing people into the brand, it's probably going to be done with the Vital Blue canister and our number one product, collagen peptides, but taking the existing Vital consumer and laddering them up into a different format like gummies, like, collagen water, collagen bars, more functional food, maybe a coffee, like that seems to be very much in our wheelhouse.
Before I let you go, I got, I guess, one more question, and maybe it's just a hope you can provide, I guess, some insights or inspiration to anybody that is thinking about joining as an entrepreneur, the like health and wellness space. I mean, obviously, people see how maybe competitive it is, and whatever, and I guess maybe that scares people away sometimes. But I also think that there's immense amount of opportunity. And I guess if you have any like tips or insights that you can share or any advice to any, I guess, up and coming entrepreneurs, I would love if you would be able to share that.
Sure. So first of all, I think that you have to take a lot of risks, and you can't be afraid of failure. So, that's one thing that I often wish I could have told my 25-year-old self, like, stop chasing perfection. Perfection is not a possibility in anything, in any endeavor, personal or professional. So I think that fail forward, take risks. I think it's really important to get your digital strategy first and foremost. So, I see a lot of brands that try to go into retail and have retail somehow put you on the map. And at the end of the day, I mean, this is my belief, like, I think retail is real estate. So it's my job as a brand marketer, to really put my brand on the map, right? It's my job to educate the potential consumer. It's my job to, create a brand that sticks out. I'm really proud of our packaging and how, like the iconic Vital Blue. Now you
Yeah.
see so many other new brands that kind of have taken a page out of our playbook, which is, like, put bright, bold colors out there. In the old days, as you know, Muscle Farm days, everything was, red and black in GNC and predominantly Vitamin Shop. And if you went into Whole Foods, everything was white and green. So I think you have to really curate what is that key differentiator that makes you very special and very unique. So for us, it was transparency and clean label and the cow on front of pack and the bright packaging. And then we kind of leaned into all things digital. So I think you really have to kind of, figure out that differentiate differentiation, and also you have to chase your why relentlessly. If you can't tell a good story of why a consumer should buy your brand, they never will. I would also say that humility is really important because you're going to fall down and fail a lot, and there's going to be a lot of things that you don't know. But I mean, it's amazing how much you can learn from Googling, you know, third-party co-manufacturers. Like, what equipment do they use? I think those are all very important attributes. I think curiosity, we talked about curiosity a little bit earlier. Curiosity is really important. Like, how does this work? How can I better it? How can I fix it? How can I improve it? Like, just thinking, holistically, 360-degree view of any problem. And lastly, I would say, like, seek out great mentors, because there's so many people in the CPG and health and wellness space that have failed and have succeeded and have tried again. And I think that there's a lot of willingness to pay it forward and help mentor, like, the next generation of entrepreneurs.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think that that's something super passionate side of me. I know that even you giving me some of your time, I know that was, a main thing. We wanted to make sure that we could give as much like value and insights to anybody watching this. If it's, tomorrow or years from now, hopefully there's, a bunch of stuff that they can gain from this conversation. But Tracy, I want to thank you for all the time that you gave me. I mean, I'm really humbled that you took the time out of your schedule to talk to me and my community.
I love your
And I
content.
just want to
For
thank you
making
overall because I think that you've done a great job at Vital. I think, super impressive company. You've been a part of the company for, the vast majority of that time, if not almost the entire time of it. And, I think it's one of those companies that people should look to and get inspiration to, and maybe even one day when they're in business school and getting their MBA, it might be a business case study. You never know.
I think it should be a business case study, right? Less than 1% of startups make it to 100 million. We did that in less than 5 years and obviously exited in less than 8. So, yeah, I think that there's some great learnings here. And, I mean, no matter what company you look at, you can dissect and gain valuable insights and gleanings from them.
Well, thank you, Tracy. I appreciate this.
Yeah. Thanks, Joshua. I love your content too. So thanks for including me in on everything that you do and put out
Oh,
there for
I no,
CPG.
that I really appreciate that. Thank you. Well, I hope you enjoyed this YouTube video. If you did, consider hitting the like button to support me. Also, help me get to my short term goal of 2,000 subscribers by hitting that subscribe button. I'd love to see you join me on this journey, but we need to fix the fact that slightly more than 80% of you that are watching this YouTube video right now are not subscribed to my channel, and that makes me extremely sad. But I do want to thank you for tuning in, and I'll see you on the next one.